Good morning. I wanted to talk about declarations page or the deck page. A lot of people hear the word, but they don't really know what it is. I'm unable to figure out how to video me and then turn it around so I can show you the document. And if I put it in front of me, it ends up being backwards. So hold on just a second. I am going to put it right here. Okay. So this is a declarations page. It's called a policy declarations, also known as a deck page. This is a policy that's actually written through Occidental. That's the underwriter, but if you'll notice, it's a SageSure policy. So even though you're buying Progressive or Geico, there's going to be another company that that is underwriting it. Here we have the policy period. It's always a year on homeowners. Let me see if I can get it any closer. Yeah, okay. If I can get it closer. Okay, so there is the policy period. It's for 1 year. Insurance cannot change this policy within a year. You can as the policyholder. They cannot add, they cannot take away. You can do that, so you don't have to worry about you thought you had coverage and then 4 months later insurance is telling you don't have coverage. That would be a no-no. Here would be the residence address. This is the producer, the person who sold it to you, the agent. This is your information, maybe you, your spouse, and the address, the contact information. Here's, again, this is the date that it started, the effective date. It's at 12:01 on that date. And then this is the amount this particular person is being charged. Now, the most important part is this right here, the coverages. So if ever you were told we're going to settle, say you had a fire and it was a total teardown and insurance wanted to settle for policy limits, right? The whole thing, your personal property, you being out of the house, your garage, your fence, your pool, your deck, in your house, right? That's all of these coverages. So dwelling is actually your home. If your garage is attached to your home by a breezeway, not just by, connected by electrical, if it's connected by a breezeway, it's part of dwelling. If it is detached, not part of the house, not connected to the house, it would fall under this other structures. And if you notice, the other structures is 10% of dwelling. Not always on HOAs. I've seen where they've picked another number. I don't know why. But anyway, the standard is that the other structures is 10% of dwelling. And if it's attached, if your garage is attached and it goes up here on dwelling, then other structures are still your fences, your decking, things that aren't actually attached to your house. And then here's personal property. You get to choose these numbers. And loss of use. Loss of use we also call additional living expenses. This is if you had to get out of your house. This is its policy limit. So if you were in a fire and your whole entire house is knocked down, like I had one, it wasn't a fire, it was from Harvey in Rockport, and the lady's house had a big metal beam hit it, and TWIA, Texas windstorm, didn't want to pay for it because they tried to say that it was foundation issues, but it was on stilts. Anyway, it was from the wind. When we settled for policy limits, they wanted to give her this, but there were other things that she was entitled to. So that's how you know what your policy limits are. I mean, they don't all go under this one. How your deductible might be determined is based on dwelling. So if you don't have a set fee of $1,000 or whatever, it'll usually be a percentage. It is mostly 1%. If you will notice, I will show you this one is 1%, and this is how you know right here. Policy deductibles, it says all other perils are pretty much 1%, and windstorm is 1%. Some people have it where all perils, water, anything but windstorm and hail might be 1%, and then the hail and windstorm might be 2%. Some people do that. I mean, it could be higher. I advise don't do that because you could be self-insured. Anyway, this is the best you can do. Insurance policies. Unfortunately, my bosses sued in the early 2000s. This was before Mostyn and all the other guys did it. There were only 3 policies back in the early 2000s, and then after the lawsuits, that needed to happen, honestly, for mold and foundation. The policies were changed, and over time, especially after Hurricane Ike here in Texas, over time, this has become a percentage. Anyway, okay, so this again is the policy fee. You can see right here, this says this is how much your producer or your agent is going to make off of it. I think that's what that number is. Okay, now, Insurance, this is an HO, I think it's an HO3 or HO5. That's full coverage, full coverage. This right here, just so you know, this is if somebody hurts themselves, injures themselves in your house, or you're responsible for some kind of liability issue. This is the policy limits for those. But when we're just talking about structural damage, that's these four. Now, mandatory forms and endorsements, these are things that this policyholder added. It also tells you what's excluded. So it'll either add it in under endorsements or it will exclude it. So if you can see here, they've excluded swimming pools. Let's see. Oh, that's on the second page. I'll show you that in a second. Right here, I always talk about the Consumer Bill of Rights. Our insurance commissioner, it used to be called the Texas Consumer Bill of Rights, but our insurance commissioner makes sure this is in here, and it's a whole Bill of Rights on what you're entitled to. This is what says if you don't like the number, you can always hire an attorney. Also, you have the right to hire your own vendor if you want. That means insurance can't force you to use their preferred vendors or preferred providers. It also talks about if mortgage company won't release your check after you've given them everything they've requested, they have to pay 10% interest on that. Anyway, that's all included in this Consumer Bill of Rights, which should be in every single policy. So they just put it on here that it's included. The mold is limited, but I will tell you this, mold is maybe limited, but if you had a water claim or a roof leak and that covered peril, and it's actually covered, and insurance says that it's covered, then any damage from that is covered. So if you had a roof leak and it caused mold, or if you had a water leak in your house and it caused mold, because here in Texas it's so humid that you need 24 hours. It grows on organic things such as paper, and that's the gypsum on the drywall. It can be the paper on your insulation. It can be cabinets. It really doesn't need that much to get it there. Here's page 2 of the declarations policy. So let me go up. Again, this says the name of the insured, the policy number. This is the date of the policy, so everybody knows it's 1 year. So what insurance is looking for is that date of loss being so important. They need to know it's this policy. So State Farm allows you to call back 2 years. So if most policies are 1 year. And so that doesn't mean you can't file after 1 year, but your chances are hurt, and your policy's probably going to be, or most likely going to be, reduced down to an actual cash value, which is not good for you. Anyway, so here we have where it says swimming pool and patio enclosures. It has limited. If you notice here, it's 0. It's excluded. So they don't have coverage for their swimming pool. Windstorm deductible, it says right here, it's included because we saw that on the first page, 1%. Personal property replacement costs for Texas, it's included. That is on that's on this dwelling coverage right here that we were talking about. See, personal property. So it talks about personal property. Sometimes it says replacement costs. Sometimes people will get it an actual cash value because they're trying to save money. It really doesn't save you any money. It's included. And then down here where it says limited water backup and sump pump, this is limited to $5,000. Now your toilet overflows, $5,000. I don't care if it overflowed and it damaged your, $20,000 bathroom and your $50,000 kitchen underneath. Guess what? It's right here. If it was caused by that, that's why I tried to tell you, do not tell insurance on a water claim what it is, because your plumber's got to determine that. Because you could say, oh, I think my toilet backed up, and just because you use the word backup and not another word like overflow, which it really could have overflowed and not been a backup, that's a big deal. One has coverage that's limited at $5,000, and one is your coverage on your dwelling, which back over here is on this case, it's 1 million. So hello, you don't want to say anything. If it is a backup, the plumber's going to state that, and then they're going to know. There's also limited foundation coverage back in the day, but when my bosses were suing, it was included and nobody ever filed it. On here, you can see it's $25,000, but I will tell you this, and I'll do one on concurrent. So if your foundation just cracks and you don't know what the heck it's from, right? They will pay on this policy, they will pay up to $25,000. However, if you have under slab plumbing leaks and it can be married that the plumbing leaks are what caused that damage, again, it's a concurrent peril, which if you do it right, you have to call it in, not as a hey, my foundation's, cracked or whatever. I notice cracks above my doors. If you will see if it's your plumbing first, and then the plumbing marries any damage to the actual under slab plumbing leaks, which older houses get, then this really doesn't apply. But you can see it, they come to me and you've already told them, oh, it's my foundation, it's my foundation, it's my foundation, I've got coverage. Yeah, you have coverage right there. And if you ever know anybody who's had damage from it, it's not just the foundation that you have to go in and put piers in, it's also the interior, and it can be extensive. It could be in clay soils. I'll do another one on this, but on clay soils, it could heave and cause cracking on your tile. What if your tile's the whole first floor, right? It could also cause sheetrock damage and all. I've seen all kinds of stuff. But anyway, then they're going to put your mortgagee on here. Also, they're going to state, if you make a false or fraudulent claim for payment of a loss or benefit, or knowingly present false information in an application, or for insurance, you're guilty of a crime and may be subject to fines. I had spoken about I didn't, but it was my avatar. I did a thing on don't materially misrepresent anything, like a fire and, oh, my cowboy boots were in there, and then you find out, no, you left them at your friend's house because you got dressed at her house for the rodeo. That's something that can void the whole contract. It also can appear to be fraudulent, a fraud. I mean, just straight up insurance fraud, and they'll threaten you with it even if it's not. So it might be a form of intimidation as well. I hear it all the time that they're saying I did because I put something in there that they think is not covered. So for me, if you're committing fraud, you are. You just have to be careful and not say you're having things done to your house that aren't, that your house is damaged from